Hi, I'm Lynn Festa. I'm an occupational therapist and coach who supports the highly sensitive person and those experiencing burnout. On this channel, I explain what it means to be an HSP and share practical, evidence based strategies to help you flourish with this trait while also preventing and/or recovering from burnout. Now, in the two previous videos, I talked about what burnout is and how it can show up in our lives. In part two, I explain the 6 areas where a mismatch between you and your work environment can contribute to the burnout. One important thing to remember is that burnout doesn't look the same for everyone because our energy drains and restores in different ways. In this particular video, I want to share some practical recovery strategies, especially for highly sensitive professionals, although these strategies can help anyone experiencing burnout. Something I often remind people is this: burnout is rarely a time problem. Most often, it's an energy mismatch. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, yet some days leave us completely drained while other days feel manageable. The goal is to understand what's happening with your energy so you can strengthen the days that you feel more sustainable. A good place to start is by asking yourself a few questions. First, what tasks drain me the most? In healthcare, the answer pretty much has always been paperwork, but it can also be unnecessary meetings, administrative, or what I like to call redundant tasks, or responsibilities that can feel especially heavy for you. Second, what tasks restore me? This is the ones that light you up. They energize you. These are the ones you actually look forward to doing. And third, where might I be over functioning? This is where you may be overextending yourself to the point that resentment starts to build. That's how you know you're over functioning. Maybe you're always the one cleaning up or handling the difficult client or taking on extra responsibilities that were never really yours to begin with. In occupational therapy, we approach this a little differently. We don't just ask what you're doing, we ask how that activity is affecting you in particular. This process is actually called activity analysis, and it means breaking down tasks to understand their impact on you. You're looking at the cognitive, emotional, sensory, and social load of your day. All of these can add up. Now, the goal isn't to eliminate every draining task. Unfortunately, that's not realistic. But the goal is to complete the tasks in ways that you don't completely deplete your energy. For example, do you really need to attend every meeting? What steps can be minimized? Go look. There's something that may be redundant, like I talked about earlier. Can something be delegated? Or one of my favorites, could this simply be handled with an email, or in these days, even a text? The second strategy is to reduce that sensory overload at work. Highly sensitive people process sensory input much more deeply. If you want a refresher on this, you can revisit the DOES framework, DOES, that I discussed in a previous video. Now, because of this deeper processing, a typical workplace can be exhausting. It can feel like your cognitive, emotional, sensory, and social systems are all running at full speed, leaving you depleted by the end of the day, or sometimes even by mid morning. Small environmental adjustments can make a big difference. For example, reducing any unnecessary noise. What music is playing overhead that maybe is distracting you? Decluttering your workspace. About 80% of the information our brains process is visual, so a cluttered environment can quickly create mental overload. I know I react to this in a positive way if it's uncluttered, or in a negative way if it's too cluttered. Other helpful strategies might include Scheduling protected documentation time. Using headphones if your workspace is noisy. Those noise canceling headphones are everywhere. Reducing unnecessary interruptions. And interruptions don't just break your focus, they reduce your productivity and increase your errors by at least 50%. And this is important to remember. For highly sensitive professionals, managing sensory overload isn't a luxury, it's an accessibility need for the nervous system. The third strategy is to build your micro recovery into your workday instead of waiting for vacations that may or may not happen. If your only recovery happens on weekends or vacations, you're likely to stay stuck in the burnout cycle. Whenever possible, I encourage people and those leaders so they can lead by example. I see you. Make sure that meaningful breaks happen throughout the year. Just like we don't run cars into the ground without maintenance, humans also need regular restoration. So we go into micro recovery during the workday to see if these can help. And I realize in healthcare, it's not always realistic to say, just take a 10-minute break every 90 minutes. That can feel pretty tone deaf if you're in an environment that doesn't allow that. So, this is where creativity comes in. For example, a brief full body shake to reset your nervous system. Just go all out. Stepping outside for a few minutes of natural light, if possible. Taking a true work free lunch break, even if it's 15 minutes. During my own career, I often tried to find a quiet or dim space for even 10 minutes. That small reset made a huge difference for me getting through the rest of the day. And sometimes that meant letting go of worrying about what others thought. Not always easy for me. Taking care of your energy has to come first. Another important piece to consider is moral injury. If burnout is coming from a conflict between your values and the system you work in, no amount of self care will solve that problem. You may need to document your concerns, seek supervision, advocate for change, adjust your role, and in some cases, begin planning an exit strategy. I have left workplaces that I realized my sensory system could not deal with. Because ultimately, if burnout comes from a conflict with your values, no amount of self care will solve the problem. The goal is to find or create an environment that fits you rather than trying to force yourself into um, fit into an environment that's not healthy for you. From an occupational therapy perspective, this is about restoring alignment between your values and your occupational performance. Another key of recovering is protecting meaningful occupations outside of work. That translation is, what do you do for fun? What brings you joy? When burnout becomes severe, work tends to take over all of your energy in the activities that bring meaning or joy, and they start to disappear. You might suddenly realize it's been weeks or even months since you've done something that you genuinely enjoy. Recovery from burnout involves intentionally bringing back small, meaningful activities that give you a sense of purpose or enjoyment. Important. These are not optional extras. They are essential to rebuilding your engagement and restoring your nervous system capacity. Because ultimately, burnout recovery isn't about doing more self care. It's about restoring alignment between your energy, your values, and your work. And finally, it's important to get the right kind of support. Highly sensitive people often try to manage burnout on their own for too long, thinking it's really just us and what's the matter with us. Because we may notice subtleties and others may miss. That's the S in the does framework. Sensing the subtle. And we sometimes assume we should just figure it out for ourselves. But you don't have to do this alone. Support might show up in finding an HSP informed coach or therapist. Occupational therapy, where we look at the workload analysis and help you adjust to your environment. or peer support from people who understand your work environment. They may be feeling the same thing, who knows? Or by pointing this out, you may help them. And thank you for watching. I hope these strategies were helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I love hearing from people. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, Lynn Festa Coaching. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.